Chapter 4. Losing My Mind. Rage. It started with rage. Trauma awakened. When you start to lose your mind, it's as if you had something in your hand that slipped right through your palm. You're vigorously fumbling to keep it within your grasp, and it dissolves right through. You could do nothing to catch it. Powerlessness. Hopelessness. It's as if you've become a psychological amputee. You lose all ability to hold anything for very long, a thought, an emotion. You have left the chat. You have left the building. 0 dark 30. Going dark began with my emotions. I couldn't hold my feelings. The regulation had been all but lost. I never knew myself to be angry, but suddenly rage was a reflection. Falling apart into the darkness seemingly came back to back. Rage, depression, suicidal ideation, binge drinking, and cutting. A human top, spinning out of control. People thought I was crazy, and I believed them. Back then, I didn't know the role early trauma played in one's mental health or even the spiritual implications the world often wants to ignore in favor of the Church of the American Psychiatric Association and their Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM. Remember the traumatic childhood sexual abuse I mentioned? Well, I didn't get treatment for that until I was 18 and preparing to go to university. I signed up for counseling once I knew I had access at my college. I wanted to heal the wounds profusely oozing all over my life. The first 2 years of college were without incident. Wrapping up dorm living at the end of my sophomore year, I moved back home, got a new car, and resumed my studies. University housing was increasingly expensive. During junior year, there was a massive shift. One day, I started to notice I was flying into a rage over the most trivial things. I was angry all the time, resorting to punching my bedroom walls and myself when I couldn't get my emotions to balance. I remember uncontrollably going off because I wasn't given barbecue sauce with my nuggets. Extreme highs and emotional lows would take over. In a moment, I was so depressed all I could do was sleep and drink to numb the pain. Just as suddenly, life had no gravity, and I'd become so ecstatic it was as if I was eating comets for breakfast. When I wasn't up or down, I was highly anxious and had anxiety-induced panic attacks that stole my ability to breathe and would cause me to pass out. I just knew I was going to die any second during those brutal attacks, as every attempt to swallow a mouthful of air failed to bring calm. My mind and emotions were never still. I feared everything. The parking garage at school, driving at night, driving at all, even my shadow as a dry leaf scraped across the asphalt under the moon's shine. I would miss my night classes because I feared stepping outside of my house. It hadn't been very long since I had begun taking Celexa for major depression, my first diagnosis, at the recommendations of my university therapist and psychiatrist. My mental health declined at a record-setting pace, along with a terrible choice of partners. I'll talk more about that later in the chapter. Until then, I'm sure you can guess where that put me. Psychotic break. I hazily walked down the corridor to Adult 1, the section for nonviolent patients. The sign was outlined red with white font, all bloodied together. This place eerily resembled a jail dorm. The RN on the overnight shift took me to the med room, scanned my hospital bracelet, and began to clean the cuts on my right thigh. Wincing, I did not realize how deep I dug the glass in until they were brimming with Bactine and peroxide. She scanned my hospital bracelet again. The soft beep replied, and the long, glum medicine tray popped out. The slot for my prescribed psychotropic opened next, as robotic and cold as the ward felt. I hugged the blanket I'd been given in triage tighter around me. I considered why I was here, and recalled the moment I sat down for one of my scheduled 2-session weekly appointments with my university therapist. She looked me squarely in the eyes, with a gentle yet sage voice, and said, "You're addicted to drama." I had just finished telling her why and how I had cut myself with classic manic episode pressured speech. "Are you having thoughts of suicide?" she asked with stoic concern. The nurse called me back to the present moment. "Are you feeling depressed?" In a soft voice I answered, wondering why they didn't exchange this intel all at once. I was asked the same questions during intake. After being bandaged, gauzed up, and led to my room, I slipped into the cloud-white twin bed, the too high dosage of Risperdal, slowly taking over my body and brain. Growing heavy, I couldn't move. The snowed-in sheets were like iron. My body faded into the blankness of the anti-sensory room. My mind was quiet, finally. I disappeared, fingers first, then toes, falling into the abyss of pills, a psychotic wrapped in mummified, sterile robes, and mindless movements. I recall being a quarter awake to have my vitals taken, but when the sun came up, I could not. I lost the sum of my parts in the too high med dosage. Somewhere in me, I was completely aware. I forced myself to get up 2 hours later for breakfast. I wasn't hungry, but ate, hoping it would wake me up. I showered, hoping it would wake me up some more. How I was hoping at all was a mystery. I fought myself to stay out of bed, convinced they would chart my every movement as evidence to keep me as long as my roommate had already been there. I was at every meal and activity. 3 days is as long as I could stomach. I wish I hadn't come. I missed the outside. I felt crazy being here. During dinner that first night, I was officially received. "Welcome to the crazy house," he yelled into my face with a toothy, jokerly smile. What a welcome committee. This nameless man thoroughly scared me into believing I was stuck in some circle of hell I wouldn't get out of. I played it cool. If this was his fear-mongering tactic, it worked. I was petrified. My peripheral vision picked up another man, endlessly pacing the room. I wondered whether his feet might fall off or if he would bore a hole into the floor first. I picked at the fruit cup on my tray. The cherry was a welcomed comfort. I had gone through every range of emotions since walking into the unit. I was pre-warned that it could be too much for me, but I was more afraid of myself than anyone in the ward. Maybe I would get some help. And then I went to jail. Mugshot. While my mental health was taking a bungee jump off the skyscraper of well-being, I had also managed to get myself locked up in the county jail after accidentally breaking my glasses and losing my seasonal job. Needing glasses to see and clearly lacking common sense at the time, I got myself into a mess attempting to get prescription lenses. Sitting in that holding cell was like being in a meat freezer. Blood stains shone off the plexiglass under the dim lighting. The stainless steel toilet seat mocked me, and my bones froze over. If hell had a cold day, this was it. My worst fear materialized, and the lady cops in the office were plotting how to put me under the jail. I felt even more suicidal that night, sure my life was over. I considered telling them, but I didn't want to prolong this mess I'd gotten myself into. By God's grace and a good lawyer my dad hired, I only spent about 24 hours in jail, paid restitution, and got off probation. Eventually, that record was sealed and buried in the grave of my old life. I carried the shame of the experience for years, post-university graduation, and wondered how God would use it. Why tell it now? So people know God was always in the details of their lives too, and he has a knack for using folks who are not squeaky clean, those the world says are lost causes. Moses dropped a whole body in Egypt, and God chose him, a murderer, to be the deliverer of the Israelites. "Let my people go" are some of the most iconic words ever spoken, and all of heaven backed him. And of course, we cannot forget Paul. It doesn't matter what you did or what you're doing, Yah can use your story's messiest, wicked, sin-stained parts for his glory. Let's go deeper. Cutting me out. I was battling demons I was utterly ignorant of, demons that savored any possibility of my death and destruction. Looking back, those demons were after all of my close friends, each of us at the time having struggled with self-harm, depression, and suicidal ideation in some capacity. I had picked up the habit of cutting myself when the emotional dam would not burst. It was the only thing at the time that made me cry. It was a punishment I regularly enacted upon myself for being unworthy, gay, bad, and somehow deserving of all the awful things that happened in my life. And it wasn't because someone told me I was going to hell that I didn't want to live. It was because my life had become a sort of ADX Florence, even, the world's most secure prison, where my very skin and bones were the cage, my mind the warden, and the same enemies suggesting I sin, my accusers. So I cut to clean, to validate, to evaporate. I thought to myself, this is not normal. I need help. The sexual abuse trauma and precipitating events had created a wound in me so deep I was unable to see myself as worthwhile, valuable, important, or safe. I struggled to believe my voice should be heard, which is why words and poetry were instrumental in helping me turn up the volume when the kingdom of darkness wanted to silence me. Help. Heavy labels. Help led to a diagnosis of the aforementioned major depression, then hypomania, borderline personality disorder, bipolar 1, and bipolar 2. They may as well have thrown the DSM at me. One doctor would say they didn't think I had BPD, while another would say it was not bipolar. The confusion was enough to make someone crazy. I felt like a lab rat, and it was clear nobody actually knew what was wrong. Second, it started to feel like no one wanted to know what was wrong. I was just wrong, and that wrongness trapped me in a cyclone of self-fixing. If one thing changed about my acute symptoms, they were ready to stick on another heavy label and throw another pill down my throat. I had 7 or 8 psych ward stays throughout my 20s, and some Baker Acts that ultimately led to me being on Celexa, Prozac, Abilify, Paxil, Tegretol, Wellbutrin, Risperidone, and lithium. 8 personality-changing psychotropic medications. No wonder I didn't know who I was for years. I wasn't supposed to. I only knew the avatar, Cierra.